If I was to pick my top state, I couldn't pick one. Sorry, I couldn't pick one. It would be two. And from watching this video in this perspective, actually, sorry. I can't pick two, I gotta pick three. Welcome everyone back to another reaction video. Before we get into this one, I just want to say a huge thank you for everyone's support towards my channel and obviously subscribing, which is massive. I noticed a lot of people have liked the video. It'd be awesome if you can subscribe. And so the video that we're going to get into today is 10 most scenic drives in the US. I got this idea from Curly Q 2717, put it right here. He mentioned there is one that shows 25 best national parks and shows the 10 best drives. Let's dive into this next reaction.
Let's take a look at the 10 most beautiful drives in the contiguous US.
So Hawaii and Alaska.
I want to start by talking about the Oregon coast. The whole coast is very nice, but I wanted to focus on the parts between Lincoln City and Brookings. This follows US Highway 101, and for most of the stretch you're right along the coast. There are a few spots where you go a little bit inland. But one thing that is really great about Oregon is that all of the beaches are public. There's public access all along the way, and there's no big development going up and down the coast. There are no big cities. In fact, the biggest towns are under 10,000 people. There is a part where you go inland a little bit around Coos Bay, which is the big city in the area with about 15,000 people. But all of the coastal towns have less than 10,000. Effectively, the entire Oregon coast is one big state park, and there are all kinds of spots where you can stop and get out to the beach. It's just really nice to see one long stretch of coastline in the US that isn't completely developed with giant hotels and big cities. Next, I want to talk about the drive in and around Theodore Roosevelt National Park in western North Dakota. If you didn't know beforehand and you had to guess what state this was based on this footage, you might need about 40 guesses or so to get North Dakota. This is one of my favorite national parks in the country, and it's a great spot to get away from crowds.
Haven't heard North Dakota yet.
And you'll see a lot of wildlife here, a ton of bison, a lot of wild horses, big prairie dog towns. And just the general scenery of the North Dakota Badlands is beautiful. Wow. There are two different units to the national park, the North and South unit. Hardly anybody goes to the South unit, and even fewer go to the North unit. You can drive around each of the two units, and US Highway 85 connects them both. If you're driving through the North unit outside of the time between Memorial Day and Labor Day, there's a very good chance you won't see anybody else in the park except for maybe a park ranger. There's really nowhere else in the US that has this type of scenery, and yes, it's in North Dakota. The next drive I want to talk about is in their neighbor to the south, South Dakota. When most people think of scenic beauty in South Dakota, they're going to think about Mount Rushmore and the Black Hills first, and that's both very nice. But what I wanted to talk about here is the drive between the town of Custer and Badlands National Park. Just east of the town of Custer, you get the Custer State Park.
Whoa, gotta pause it right there. Wow. So from my last video to what I've seen so far, North Dakota wasn't mentioned, South Dakota wasn't mentioned. Look at this. This is totally different from what I've seen so far. That looks so cool. Even with a little bit of green next to the road, you got green around, like it just, we don't have this in New Zealand at all. We do not have this in New Zealand. I've never seen something that looks like that. That is stunning. That is beautiful. Wow.
And this has got some nice scenery, but the best part about this drive is you're basically guaranteed to see a whole bunch of bison. They'll just be there chilling, roaming the streets, wishing people weren't there to bother them.
Would be cool.
But going a little bit farther east, you get to Badlands National Park, and this is where the scenery gets really gorgeous. The last time I was at this park, it was really cold, a bit too cold to be going hiking, but the drive is really nice going through.
Sorry, I don't want to pause it too much, but this is different. This is different. Holy cow. I know it's a different angle from what I saw before. It's quite similar, but this is South Dakota. South Dakota. Never heard of that state before, but South Dakota is, wow.
through the park,
Stunning.
so you can see some really nice
Beautiful.
scenery and not even get out of your car. Heading way southeast is the drive across the Florida Keys. I'm talking specifically
Florida.
here US Highway 1 between Key Largo and Key West. The whole drive between the two is almost like being on one big bridge. You go through all kinds of small islands, the Keys, and the whole time you're just seeing this beautiful turquoise water. There are several spots where you can stop and get out of your car along the way, and I remember I stopped at one and got out of the car and saw a couple of iguanas running around. I could see this road being kind of a pain in the butt and high traffic on busy holiday weekends, but
True.
it's all worth it when you get to the end at the Conch Republic. In my opinion, the most beautiful stretch of drive along an interstate is Interstate 70 in the central part of Colorado. Between the towns of Eagle and Idaho Springs is the highest elevation of anywhere on a U.S. interstate. The highest point is Loveland Pass at just under 12,000 feet. To go over the pass, the interstate itself goes through a tunnel, but you can take a side exit and go on US Highway 6 to go over the actual pass. And with you being at almost 12,000 feet for a good chunk of the year, there's going to be a lot of snow on.
Like, that is the most beautiful thing I have seen. You saw it too. You had the green version and now it's the white version. I'm genuinely speechless over this. So cool to watch this. So cool to learn about it.
So if you want to experience high altitude and thin air but not go on some crazy hike or on some weird back roads, you can do it on I-70 in central Colorado.
I just can't imagine just...
Next up,
just
arguably the
driving
most
down.
famous drive in the US, the Blue Ridge Parkway. This goes through a large part of the southern Appalachians in North
beautiful.
Carolina and Virginia, and my favorite part of the drive is the stretch between Asheville and Boone. You go right near Mount Mitchell, which is the highest peak in the eastern US. And this is a very nice drive no matter what time of the year you do this. The most popular time is going to be the fall, especially October during the peak fall foliage season. But that's also when it's the busiest. So you can go in the spring or summer and it's still very nice, very green.
The red.
And even during the winter with
orange
no leaves
look.
on the trees and a light dusting of snow, it is still very pretty. Next up is arguably the most famous drive in the western US, and that's the Big Sur coastline in California. You've probably seen footage and images of this drive many times.
We've seen this.
A lot of folks that are not familiar with California think this is much farther north in the state than it is. This is California Highway 1 between the towns of Carmel and San Simeon, which is where Hearst Castle is. And for most of this drive, you're along a big high cliff. There's all kinds of pull-offs. You can look over at some big drop-offs down to the ocean.
Yes, we've
and there's
seen
some
this in our
serious
last
wilderness between the coast and the valley on the other side of the mountains. And every few years, one of those bridges gets washed out and the road has to be closed, and the handful of people that live back there are basically cut off from society until the road gets repaired. So this is a drive where you'll definitely want to pull over at some of the turnouts to get your photos and some nice views, as opposed to oohing and awing while you're driving. Next, I want to mention the north shore of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan along Lake Superior. Specifically, I'm talking about the stretch between the towns of Marquette and Grand Marais. You're hugging the lake shore for a big chunk of this drive. You can see Grand Island out in the lake as you go around it, and it goes right to Pictured Rock National Lakeshore, which is a really nice spot.
Beautiful.
You can't see the beautiful cliffs of Pictured Rock from the road, but you are not that far from it. But even if you don't go off the main road into the National Lakeshore, just staying on the road is a really nice drive. You'll go around some nice sand dunes and you'll end up in the really cute town of Grand Marais. Most of the UP of Michigan is very beautiful, very wooded, but especially this spot along the north shore of the Upper Peninsula is where you have some of the most beautiful views. Next up is a nice drive around some mountain lakes in western Maine. I'm talking primarily about the areas around Rangeley Lake, Mount Blue State Park, and the Sandy River Valley. Part of this area is called the Carabasset Valley. I'm not sure if that's how it's pronounced, but just some nice wilderness mountain lakes. Rangeley, or maybe it's Rangeley, I know is a very popular spot for people from Maine to go to in the summer, popular spot for people to have cabins. But even if you're just doing the loop drive in the area, you'll get some really fantastic scenery.
That's what I've seen. America.
And I'm pretty sure there are some characters from Stephen King novels buried out there. And in general, western/northwestern Maine is where you're going to find some of the deepest wilderness in the eastern US. And now for what I think is the most beautiful drive in the US. It's the drive in southern Utah going through the national parks Zion, Bryce Canyon, and Capitol Reef. This is classic canyon country and a big part of the Grand Circle road trip tour that a lot of people do. The whole Grand Circle includes the 5 national parks of Utah as well as the Grand Canyon and other parts of northern Arizona.
Wow. See, when we watched Utah in the previous video, it didn't show this. It didn't show this. This kind of gives me that same type of rock mountain. It's like certain formations that look similar to South Dakota. That is, I mean, if I was traveling through this on a road, my eyes would be lit up because we don't have this here. We don't have this in New Zealand. And he's chosen this to be his number 1, so I can see why. And it's given me a bit of a perspective. I think I didn't obviously have Utah in my top of my last video, but that is, I got to say, that is beautiful. Utah is super stunning.
But I do think this particular stretch is the most beautiful.
I can see why.
Driving through Bryce Canyon National Park requires going down a spur road into the park, but it's definitely worth it.
The colors.
And there's another spot called the Hogback, which is just this crazy ridge. It's a narrow road with a big steep drop off on both sides. I've driven over that part many times, and when I've been with other people, they always get kind of freaked out. Probably isn't the best time to have a tire blowout. You'll also go through Grand Staircase, Escalante National Monument, and a bunch of state parks as well. And the road goes right through Capitol Reef National Park, which is where you'll see some of the most colorful sandstone in the US. This drive is much longer than the other ones I talked about in the video, but it is definitely worth checking out the entire route. Although I do highly recommend stopping at least a few times along the way and probably want to make this a multi-day drive.
Okay, so I remember in the other video I chose Oregon and Hawaii as my top states, mainly because of the green. Very green. I come from a very green country, but I guess in terms of my thinking behind it is, I didn't think that video did other states justice. For example, Utah. I saw something totally different from that video compared to the previous. And so, the number one thing that comes to my mind when watching that video is, I'm in America, I'm in my car, I'm driving along the road, and I come to one of these beautiful scenic drives. And I'm looking out the window going, what planet am I on? And there's something that touches me deep inside, the transition between a mountain that's green, well, it doesn't even have to be green, and then it's just white. So giving you a background story, I live in the North Island of New Zealand. So in order to go to the snow, the closest place is Mount Ruapehu. So I'm not used to seeing white scenery. I've been to the snow, but my eyes aren't used to just naturally seeing that. I'm used to seeing green everywhere. So if I'm gonna go to my top, if I'm gonna pick my top states in this video, because this is different from my last video, I'm driving, I'm in the car, I am driving. If I was to pick my top state, I couldn't pick one. Sorry, I couldn't pick one. It would be 2. And from watching this video in this perspective, actually, sorry. I can't pick 2, I gotta pick 3. I'm sorry, I gotta pick 3. And I'm gonna put these in order. Okay. 3rd, Florida. That drive across the ocean is incredible. Blue, light blue, stunning. Number 2, I am going to have to pick South Dakota. I don't think I've seen anything like that before. And I put number 1, Utah. I put Utah as number 1. Both South Dakota and Utah gave me similarities, different colors, different landscapes. South Dakota had kind of the gray, creamy type colors with different rock formations, and Utah had that was kind of like, you had the oranges, but you had, it was like a light red, kind of like a purpley type color. And the formations just took my breath away. So I put Florida, South Dakota, Utah up top. Okay, so I want you guys put down in the comments below what you thought your number 1 scenic drive was in America.